Villainous and Gangsters! Welcome back to the Spiffy Nerd Herder channel, and today we have the immense privilege to talk about my favorite movie of all time, which is Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, directed and written by the maker himself, George Lucas. So, um, I love this movie for many reasons, mostly just because it was, when I saw it on May 19th, 2005, or May 14th, because it was a midnight showing. Back when midnight showings were actually midnight showings. Um, as far as I knew, it was the last Star Wars movie of all time. There was never going to be another Star Wars movie after this one. And so, my friends and I, it was like the perfect culmination of everything that was holy. Soda Pop, what's up? That Gold Taco, you are watching Godfather Part 2? No. Star Wars comes first. So when I first saw this movie, let me tell you about the greatest week of all time. So I was a junior in high school. I was in a lot of AP classes, and we had already taken the AP test. And so basically we had no more school. And so we basically ditched school for an entire week. And this is what we did, and it was amazing. On day one, we started watching we watched episodes 1 and 2 of Star Wars. Then on that Tuesday, a few seasons of Seinfeld came out on DVD. Yeah, and we watched all those episodes. Then we watched episodes 1 and 2 again, I think, and then we watched a season finale of Smallville, and then there was a preview for Batman Begins. Then we went and saw Revenge of the Sith. We came back home, and mind you, we weren't sleeping. Then we watched episodes 4, 5, and 6, and then we went and saw episode 3 again at 7 o'clock that night. By that point, it was exhausting. And by the way, we were playing Halo basically the entire time also. We had like 2 TVs set up, and there was a bunch of us, and we were just playing Halo like the entire time as we had all these movies playing. It was intense. I'm surprised we didn't die of a heart attack or something like that. All right, so Soda Pop saying is that Revenge of the Sith is the favorite out of the prequels. Abdi Muhammad, hola. Troy Llewellyn, hello there, General Kenobi. Welcome. So we are talking about Revenge of the Sith today. I was just talking about the week I saw it. It came out on May 19th, 2005. When it came out, it was the last Star Wars movie that we were ever going to see, and so we made a big deal out of it. And basically, it was a whole entire week just of television and video games and stuff like that. It was intense. Still remember it. It'll never be duplicated in my lifetime. The stars aligned. But anyways, when I first saw it, I remember, the opening sequence where they're going through all, rescuing the Chancellor and everything. I remember thinking that the dialogue was so bad. I remember thinking this has got to be a dream or something like that. Especially like once they get to Coruscant and what's his name? Anakin's like, oh, hold on, this whole thing was your idea. Oh no, you could be the poster boy today. I just remember it was such bad dialogue. I'm like, this has got to be a dream. And then it just kept going. I'm like, okay, this obviously was not a dream. But bad dialogue aside, I love this movie. Okay, Carly Johnson says that she loves this movie, so she's right. Definitely the best out of the prequels. I've never really met anybody who says that it's not the best out of the prequels. Of course, some people, like for myself, it's my favorite Star Wars movie. I don't foresee anything overtaking that in the near future, at least. Doesn't mean I think it's the best made Star Wars movie. Like, I just bashed the dialogue. The dialogue is utterly horrendous virtually this entire film. Except in the, of course, we have the opera scene, which is incredible. Which I don't know where that is, but... so there are a lot of good parts with great dialogue, but overall, it's pretty awful, the dialogue. So I want to know, what are some of your favorite parts? So I did rewatch this movie today, and I used to like watch it once a week, and so I know it pretty dang well. I'm very much, Star Wars Theory and myself and Nikolai, we've been revisiting the story together with for episode 2 of Vader. So very much I've got a lot of Vader in my mind. And so as I was watching this, I was paying close attention to some of the things of why Vader turns to the dark side. Where he doesn't, of course, he doesn't want to lose Padme like he lost his mother. That he feels that the Jedi are excluding him, which is in turn increasing his angst for losing Padme because he feels like he has to do it alone, which is why he never reaches out to anybody for help. He never calls to Obi-Wan for help because he feels like he's being excluded. And it's a very powerful emotion. When you feel like people are purposely marginalizing you, sometimes we withdraw ourselves and marginalize ourselves, which can sometimes cause problems. And Anakin does that to himself. So I thought it was a good bit of writing. I remember, up in the runnings up to episode 3, I remember thinking, okay, what's going to make Anakin turn to the dark side? What's going to do it? What's it going to be? And we all kind of knew that maybe something with Padme, it was going to have something to do with Padme and stuff like that. But not many people thought that he's going to have a Force vision saying Padme's going to die. And then all of a sudden, all the stuff with Anakin's mother in episode 2 now totally makes sense. And it was a brilliant setup. So Carly says her favorite part is when Padme meets Anakin in Mustafar, and he tells her about how he can rule the galaxy. Lovely part. You and I can make things the way that we make things the way we want them to be. I loved that part because we see again how little that Darth Vader changed from here until Empire Strikes Back. Because in Empire Strikes Back, he says, to Luke, join me and we can rule the galaxy as father and son. And here he's essentially saying the exact same thing to Padme. Like, you and I can rule the galaxy as husband and wife. And I really liked that because, Darth Vader doesn't really start to change in his ambitions for power and his lust for power, right? Until really Luke does touch him to the core, especially going into Return of the Jedi. So I really liked that connection that George did there. So what are some other favorite parts you guys had? I mean, there's got to be more than that. But some of the other things, definitely the prequels. There was a cohesive story, and Revenge of the Sith. We're watching third movies of trilogies here. And Revenge of the Sith does tie up pretty much everything. Of course, is like who's Sifo Dyas, which we don't really learn until the Clone Wars cartoons. There are those little things that George basically, he purposely decided to leave that out because it was always his intention to talk about Sifo Dyas. But when he got to the point, he's like, you know what, that just has nothing to do with Anakin. So I got to cut that out. It's like for the very purpose of why. If you watch like the deleted scenes on the DVD, there's a whole subplot about Padme and Mon Mothma and Senator Organa kind of creating the seeds that would eventually become the rebellion, the rebellion against the Empire. And all that was cut out, and they were fully filmed and had the visual effects done. It'd be very easy to put them back in, but he took them out because it just took away the story of Anakin's fall, and so. Makes a lot of sense, honestly, because the story, it is the Skywalker saga until you at least get to episode 7. Okay, Troy Llewellyn says, do you believe the fan theory that Jar Jar Binks could have been a Sith Lord? Well, Troy, I'm not going to lie. I really do actually like the idea. I think it would have just been such just cosmic justice if he were actually the Phantom Menace and he were, Sidious's master and all that stuff. I think when you hear it, you're like, wow, maybe that could be. And then you go back and watch it, you're like, no, Jar Jar is just Jar Jar. So I wish it were true. I think it would have been hilarious if that was George's original intention. But yeah, that's all I can say about that one. With episode 3, though, of course, you love the fighting. It's all super great. the Grievous Obi-Wan fight is sweet. The fight between Yoda and the Emperor is probably one of my favorites. Like I love this moment right here as they're coming in to the Senate chamber. Um, I mean, it's just gorgeous. Uh, and these scenes were heavily influenced and directed by Steven Spielberg. So it's all pretty amazing stuff. And I remember seeing the behind the scenes. They wanted to make Obi-Wan and Anakin as powerful as they could possibly make it, but they also couldn't go against what was in the original trilogy. Around this time, Crash Attack on the Hidden Dragon had come out, and they wanted to kind of have the Jedi be acrobatic like that, but they said, well, we can't do that because Luke and Anakin or Luke and Vader don't even come close to doing those things in the original trilogy. So they still had to keep it grounded. Of course, the new sequel trilogy has taken the powers of the Jedi up and beyond, and it's always the question of, how much do you take the Force? How much do you push the Force until you start breaking movies that have come before it? I mean, it is a legitimate issue, and it's something that I think any Star Wars filmmaker really needs to consider when doing it. Because you want to push the boundaries of the Force, but you also don't want to push so hard that it breaks everything that's come before. So Charlie says, sorry that he's late, but it is such a great movie. Soda Pop says, Palpatine showed how he was really a master manipulator in this movie. And Soda Pop, I'm glad you brought that up because, there's always the debates on like who's the most powerful Sith Lord. Oh, well, Darth Nihilus could destroy a planet. He's legends now, but who cares? Darth Plagueis could create life with the midichlorians, supposedly, right? We hear about all these Sith Lords, and what could Palpatine do? He could do some Force lightning. Yeah, he could do the Force lightning in Episode 9. And take out a bunch of ships temporarily at least. But to me, that's not Palpatine's power at all. Yeah, he can do all those things, but Palpatine's power is his ability to manipulate both events and people. I mean, you think about all that he did. He manipulated Anakin's emotions so subtly over the course of like 9 years, or 12 years, or however long it was between Episode 1 and I think it was 9 between 1 and 2, and then 3 between 2 and 3, I think. But he also manipulated galactic events. He was the force behind the Clone Wars. While in Legends, Darth Plagueis was involved in the creation of the Clone Army, but it was Palpatine who came up with the idea for the Jedi to create the army. It was Palpatine's idea to use the clones to eventually kill the Jedi, and that's Legends. We don't know 100% how it all worked in canon yet, but he was so good at planning ahead. And I saw this really funny thing. I don't remember what website it's on, but it's hilarious about how in Rise of Skywalker, what ends up happening with Palpatine is actually like Plan F or G or something like that, because it goes through like, well, first he wants to kill Rey, and then he wants to have her alive, then he wants to do this, but then he wants to do this, and it's like it's making a joke out of it. But I think there's something very real to say how Palpatine, his main power is simply just manipulation of both people and events. So I'm glad you brought that up, Soda Pop. Totally agree. And one thing that I thought I noticed is after Anakin and Mace Windu have the little fight in Palpatine's office, and after kind of right at this moment, Palpatine says, "You first, I want you to go to the Jedi Temple. We will catch them off balance." And I used to always think that we'll catch them unaware, we'll catch them unguarded, it'll be unexpected. But I do wonder now if it's something a little bit more than that. If this event that just occurred in this office, where the Sith are now finally coming out of the shadows, if that is like opening up a kind of a rift in the Force, if it is doing something. One of the things that is very interesting is how the Jedi never saw the Sith returning. It's like in Episode 1 where Mace says, "Oh, I do not think that the Sith could have returned without us knowing." I wonder if it's in this moment where Palpatine is letting the dark side now finally not penetrate the galaxy, because it's already done that at this point, but if he's finally allowing it to come to like fruition, if it's finally allowing him, if he's finally allowing the dark side to come out of the shadows. And I'm wondering if that's what he means. I'm wondering if he is causing now something to happen in the Force that will catch the Jedi off balance. Maybe it's not just oh, we're going to catch them unaware, you're just going to show up and kill everybody. I wonder if he's actually saying, no, home slice Anakin, they're not going to be able to differentiate. Their ability to tap into the Force is now gone, at least to the degree it was. And maybe maybe it wasn't just Anakin and his powerful abilities and the 501st going in there and killing the Jedi, but I wonder if Palpatine himself was actually very much involved in Anakin's success in the Jedi Temple by kind of taking away their ability to use the Force, by unbalancing the Force, so to say. Okay. Charlie says deception. Yep, I can't remember the quote, but there was one that called Palpatine Darkness Beyond Darkness, a event horizon. Dalek Scientist, you're not too late. No, we've only been going for a little bit. Troy says, so which dynamic do you like more in this movie, Obi-Wan or Anakin, and Palpatine and Anakin? That's a great question. I think for me it's Palpatine and Anakin. I really like their dynamic. I love it in the opera scene. It's the Great Temptation scene. I love their dynamic kind of as like a father and son. Obi-Wan and Anakin are kind of like the brothers. But to me, it was so sweet to see Palpatine's their relationship, because we never really got that. We would never even think that they would have any. It's like when Palpatine finds Anakin on the Mustafarian bank, like right here. He finds him and he just reaches out and touches him very subtly. Now, George, I don't think he was looking too deep into this, but George was purposely doing this to kind of mimic when Obi-Wan Kenobi force heals Luke Skywalker after the Tusken Raider attack in Episode 4. He was purposely mimicking that. But I've talked with Star Wars Theory about this, and we're both a little torn. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but for me, it's is he simply seeing, wow, my apprentice has fallen so far so quickly, or is he giving him some sort of Force life? It is that Force heals a light side power, so that kind of goes against that theory. But to me, it's almost, if you can call Palpatine tender in any situation in the history of the galaxy, this scene would be it, and I just like that. All right, so Dalek says, apparently due to the fact that the Jedi Temple was built on top of a dark side nexus, it clouded their ability to sense the dark side and the future. Yeah, as far as I know, that's a Legends thing. It's not a canon thing. But yeah, in Legends, it was built on an ancient Sith shrine that Palpatine did access during his time as Chancellor and everything like that. But personally, I don't really dig that too much because it takes away the Sith's role in it all. It's like if the Jedi Temple were built on this thing, then it's kind of like, I don't know. It takes away the Sith's basically planning and awesomeness to have pulled this off, when it was actually just there was some nexus in the Force that was doing all their dirty work for him. All right, so let's see here. JK Ultra, man, what's up? It's been a while. Good to see you. I've been up to a lot of things. I've been right now working on a Netflix show called Jupiter's Legacy. Still working. Very blessed to say that, because a lot of people in the film industry are not working right now. Been working from home. Great crew, great show. I think you guys will enjoy it. It's a superhero show. It's based on a comic by Mark Miller. He's done a lot of comics, so it's not a Marvel or DC show. But I'm just doing visual effects, assistant editing on it. But I'm learning a lot. It's fun. It gets me health insurance, which when you got 3 kids is importante. And then I've been writing a lot. So I mentioned we're Star Wars Theory. I'm helping him with Vader Episode 2 and the writing in a writing capacity. Uh, not currently not directing it, unfortunately, just because I'm not available. I would love to, but you know, if anything changes, I'll be there for him because I love working with him, and I freaking love the the web series, right? So I hope I can do that because episode 2 is awesome, guys. It's legit. It's legit. Okay. Um, well, thanks, Charlie. I appreciate that. So why else do I love this movie? You know, to me, the moments once Obi-Wan engages General Grievous, from that point on, so about an hour into the movie to the end, to me is the best of all cinema ever. I just love it so much. I just get so excited when I watch this movie because it just is so pleasing to me. Um, it's just, I like it just brings up so many questions. Like, how does Palpatine know that Anakin and Padme are married? As far as I know, we've still never gotten the answer to that question. If we have in canon, please let me know because I want to see it. Uh, I love the fights. I love the Mace not trusting Anakin and how that comes back to bite him. I mean, who doesn't love this part? I mean, the whole the Force scream that he does. That was my horrible impersonation. How the Jedi just get dominated, 1, 2, 3, like dominoes, and how Kit Fisto gets a few hits in. Um, but I just love that, and the age old question of did Palpatine throw the fight with Mace Windu, or did Mace Windu actually beat him? George Lucas says that Mace Windu actually beats him, but um, you know, Star Wars Theory asked Ian McDermott at Celebration, uh, did you purposely lose the fight to Palpatine? And Ian McDermott thought about it and said no. So we have the maker saying yeah he lost it, and the actor saying no he purposely lost it to help in his seduction of Anakin. Um, what do you guys think? I mean, do you think Palpatine actually lost this fight to Mace Windu, or was it all part of his immense foresight and planning to eventually manipulate Anakin to turn him to the dark side? I mean, did Palpatine know this was going to happen? Was he saying, you know what, that's an acceptable sacrifice, my face for galactic domination and a kick-ass princess? Maybe he was. Okay. Um, Soda Pop says Palpatine was very fast when dueling, that a regular person would just see lightsaber flashes. Yeah, the book, the Revenge of the Sith book, talks about how it's just blurs of red and purple. Um, and as I was rewatching it today, I thought, I wonder why they didn't make him move even just faster. Like why they didn't make him a blur, especially when he stabs the two Jedi right off the bat. And then I just thought, well, maybe they didn't want to make him so ridiculously powerful that it's never been seen before, particularly in the originals. I mean, the originals are always going to be like the anchor to what Jedi can really do, even though it's kind of blowing up now. Okay, Dalek says Mace Windu beat him 100%. It was Anakin that made him lose. All right, so that's what Dalek is saying. Palps, and then J.K. Ultra is saying Palps definitely lost on purpose. All right, and then Dennis, wait, what's up, man? Part of his ploy to manipulate Anakin. All right, so we got a little bit of disagreement. I like it. I don't know where I come down on the fence, to be totally honest. I mean, I tend to think that he lost on purpose. But Mace Windu was a straight up beast, man. I mean, it's Samuel L. Jackson we're talking about. So, so I don't know. Okay, so Charlie says it's treason then. Man, I remember going 2005 opening night, and that scene was epic. I think Mace and Anakin were equal. Mace and Palpatine were equal, but when Anakin got there, he threw the fight to win over Anakin, and that's just me. One of the things that does make me think that that he threw the fight is because right here, he said, I'm so weak, please don't. And then Anakin comes in, chops off the hand, and then look at this. Look how Palpatine just smiles. And then power, unlimited power. To me, it's like that just turn of that smile that he does there tells me this is all been an act. Now it's game time. Now I'm not messing around anymore. Okay. So Dennis says, most annoying part of this movie. Oh, we're getting criticism. I like it. Why did Yoda and Obi-Wan separate to fight Palps and Anakin? First, team up and beat Palps, then take on Anakin. That's a great question. Because it didn't work in a movie? I don't know. Yeah, because they never do. There's never really a ticking clock. It's not like, I guess there is. But there's never really like a definitive ticking clock, like they have to defeat them both within the next 24 hours or the galaxy explodes or something like that. That's a really, really good question. Perhaps they thought, perhaps legitimately they thought they'd both be able to take him on. At least Yoda thought that he would be able to take on Palpatine, because Yoda's the OG. He's the GOAT. I think that Yoda was more powerful, at least equally matched with Palpatine, at the very least. In the Clone Wars, both Palpatine and Dooku try to take on Yoda, and they can't defeat him in the original series finale. So maybe that's why he thought he could do it again. Maybe it was his arrogance. The arrogance, for better or for worse, they're, I don't want to say arrogance, but they're overabundance of confidence is what really brought the Jedi down in the end. Okay, so hey, we got a new we got Preda King. Actually, in the film, we could watch Palp losing his saber as Anakin's arrives. Anakin trusted Palps. He is the father, friend, and uncle he needed. So he does lose his saber when Mace kicks him, goes flying out the window. Somehow he gets it back later, right? And we know that Palpatine has two of them too. But you mentioned, a lot of times in this movie, Palpatine refers to Anakin as my son. Like, I need your help, son. He purposely was trying to be that father figure for Anakin. And one of the things that, this gets really deep, but one of the things there's two things. In the original script, Palpatine comes straight up and says that it was his influence in the midichlorians that created Anakin. And he's like, and from a certain point of view, you could even call me your father. Of course, that's not canon because it was eventually taken out from the script. But even, in the DVD commentary, when Rick McCallum, the producer, is talking during the opera scene, he's saying how the theme of Star Wars has always been fathers and sons, which, when you think about it, it really kind of is, especially, of course, the original trilogy. And even in the sequel trilogy, that theme really does continue with Rey's desire to know her parents and her lineage, and Ben and his relationship with Han. And so that's a theme that probably really did keep going. And even Anakin and Obi-Wan being kind of like his father figure in episode 2, and then that shifting to Palpatine in episode 3. But what I was going back to about Rick McCallum, him saying that he even implied that Plagueis and Palpatine created Anakin with the midichlorians, and that they were kind of his father figures. As a DVD commentary, but that is just a Star Wars theory by Rick McCallum, apparently. Okay. All right, let's see here. Dalek Scientist says Mace was the most powerful Jedi in terms of lightsaber combat and won almost every fight he was in. We can say he won almost every fight he was in because he lost the last fight he was in. So Charlie is again being too kind with my impressions. Dalek says overconfidence is your weakness. Shows how Luke changed from how the Jedi were in the prequels to how they were supposed to be. I agree. I mean, one of the things that Luke he says that to the Palpatine in Episode 6, where he's essentially Palpatine has now become how the Jedi were in Episode 6. I mean, let's say it how it is. I mean, the Jedi were overconfident. They had an abundance of overconfidence. I wouldn't call it arrogance, but they were overconfident in their ability to use the Force, so that they were on the side of the Force, and the Force was on their side. By the end, Palpatine is kind of taking that role, but his is definitely arrogance, right? And Luke calls it out in Episode 8. I mean, at the height of their power, they allowed a Dark Lord, Dark Sidious, to rise to power and kill all the, he kind of says it kind of angrily to Rey. And it's true. I mean, it's sometimes we kind of think of, we can't say anything bad about the Jedi because they're the light side, but they certainly, they made a few mistakes, a few boo-boos, and it's hard to know how much blame to pin on them and stuff, but because Palpatine was straight up gangster and defeated them fair and square. But cool stuff. Okay, so what are some other favorite parts? Of course, the film is full of Easter eggs. We've got the Millennium Falcon in the story when they get to, let's see here, when they get to the landing dock. We have a really corny line of "another happy landing" from Obi-Wan right here. Particularly after they just destroyed an entire control tower and all the people that were in it. But I'm sure you guys know about this little Easter egg thing right here as it's flying, as the ship is flying into, right there, we got the Millennium Falcon. So I imagine this is well before Lando. Supposedly in canon, it is the Millennium Falcon. I guess they can change that at any time since it's so freaking tiny. Okay, but so back in the day too, when they were first writing this, Han Solo was supposed to be in the story, and once Yoda and his good relations with the Wookiees, takes over, and he goes to Kashyyyk. Let me see if I can just find it here. Sorry, guys. Ooh, best part ever. Okay, there we go. We got Yoda here, and he's with Chewbacca. But in one of the original drafts of the script, it wasn't really Chewie he was helping about. It was actually a 9-year-old Han Solo, and he was on Kashyyyk and everything like that. What would you guys think about that? What would you guys think? Would that have been too much? I mean, some people thought it was too much to have Chewie in this because Chewie never mentions anything about the Force to Han later, even though he's clearly been with the greatest Jedi Master ever and he knows what's up, and he's seen the Jedi in action and everything. But would it have been too much to have Han Solo in this movie? Okay, so let's see here. Oh, Dennis is bringing up "Hello there." I mean, that is clearly one of the most memeable moments of this entire film. Okay, JK says, I have a problem where I see an indie movie theaters and then I think it's great. And then a week later, I realize they aren't even that good as I thought. When I was watching episode 9, I was like super into it. Then the moment it ended and I kind of really started thinking about the movie, I'm like, wait a minute. Okay, Dennis is glad. He is glad that Han was dropped. Yeah, I think it would have been too much. I believe one of the reasons it was dropped is because if George realized it was going to be too much, it would take some of the focus off of Anakin. It's like, for instance, in the Vader series, we've been constantly being asked, well, if you got Mace Windu, you got to bring in Boba Fett and everything. But then it becomes a Boba Fett Mace Windu movie. It's not a Vader Mace Windu thing anymore. So you always got to see, okay, what's the story I'm telling? And if everything's not supporting that, then it's got to go. Okay. The fight, Anakin and Obi-Wan and John Williams' score throughout the movie just plays on the hot strings. I love Battle of the Heroes. I mean, that is certainly one of my most favorite scores of all the Star Wars films because of the emotion that it conveys. Predator King says the crash landing is my favorite because R2 one could his own interpretation of his whistling. I love the ooh, ooh Yeah, the whistle that was created. They had a few new sounds for this movie in Revenge of the Sith that had never been heard in any of the Star Wars films before, and that was like my favorite one as they were crashing. Um, that wouldn't work with his life debts with Chewbacca, and I want to see a teenage Han Solo Disney Plus show. And Corellia, that might be interesting. Um, you know, that's funny, JK Ultra. I liked the movie Solo. I really enjoyed it, but it also, I thought it was a bad choice to do a Star Wars thing about Solo because to me, Star Wars is the Force. It is the Force. It is the Force. As soon as you start making things that don't have anything to do with the Force or are not connected to the Force in any way, it's game over. Even Rogue One was connected to the Force because it was all about those kyber crystals, and the Force was mentioned literally 500 million times in that movie. And so it was always a big deal. But with Han, it's never mentioned until you get like 2 seconds with Darth Maul using the Force to get a lightsaber and turn it on for no reason. Um, and so it felt quintessentially non-Star Wars. But I like the idea of a Disney Plus show. That would actually make a lot more sense to me, because The Mandalorian works, and The Mandalorian, it's got the Force, Baby Yoda. But that could be interesting. Okay, Harrison Ford could not be recast. No, let's not recast Harrison Ford as a young Han Solo. So let's see here. Some of the things I did like in this movie, of course, I like one of the things I was mentioning earlier. I did like how it ties up a lot of things. The ability to cheat death really becomes a big thing with Anakin and his like, I'll become the most powerful Jedi. I will even learn to stop people from dying. All these things that were set up in Attack of the Clones really get paid off in Episode 3, and the creation of the clone army, Palpatine being elected Chancellor, all these things all get paid off. And the voting of emergency powers, where he says, I will lay these powers down when the crisis has abated. Of course, Palpatine doesn't. So I really like that. Are there any other things that you guys want to talk about in Episode 3? Because tomorrow we'll be hitting Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. And then the next day, the Rise of Skywalker. Of course, we got George Lucas's cameo with one of his daughters, right here, Baron Papanoida or something like that. They're featured in a few episodes of the Clone Wars. Unfortunately, George does not do the voice. He doesn't do the George Lucas voice, unfortunately. We wish. The Anakin Obi-Wan confrontation as Obi-Wan steps off the ship on the Mustafarian landing platform is great. I totally agree. Before I get there, I love this whole moment when Anakin walks in, Lord Vader, we've been expecting you. And then dun 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 dun, and then the burning Jedi Temple. I love it. I just love the moment. The filmmaking here is just so visual and so just top notch, especially as he goes through. And we can just see the pain too, as you can see him like crying like right there. You can see the pain that Anakin is going through doing all this, but you feel for the dude because he's doing it to save Natalie Portman, And so I liked how they humanized Vader. That's probably one of my favorite things about it. I really enjoyed it. I didn't, there's a lot of problems I have with Anakin Skywalker's character, especially in Episode 2 and a little bit in Episode 1. But by the time they got to Episode 3, I felt like the compass had really aligned itself well, and they really found a strong, more complex character. Of course, there are things that I still would have done differently, but I really liked how he turned to the dark side for love. Bad choice, don't do that. But it made a lot more, made the whole thing a lot more sympathetical. Now the question really is by the time you get to the original trilogy, he's not to the dark side for love anymore. He's to the dark side for hate. And so the whole story arc that happens between Episode 3 and 4 is kind of what we're trying to hit in our Vader fan series. Of how does he get there? How does he go from turn to the dark side for love to staying to the dark side for hate? Okay. Soda Pop says, what confuses me is that they named Leia with a different last name while Luke has the same last name. Well, Jedi logic is that you want to hide a child, you send him to his family and let him keep the last name. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, why wasn't he Luke Lars instead of, she's Leia Organa. Why didn't he become Luke Lars? I don't know. There is actually, oh man, there's actually a reason. Star Wars Theory did a video about it, so check it out. I can't remember what the video is called, but he did do a theory of why the last name wasn't changed, and I thought it was interesting. Episode 3 does have the best lightsaber battle ever. I mean, I love it. I think this whole moment's right here with, that's not this moment. The whole Obi-Wan, Palpatine, intercutting back and forth between these two things. I mean, this is just like, to me, the senatorial chamber. The Senate chamber is like the best location for a fight ever. Okay. There was an actor that played young Harrison Ford in another movie and looked just like him. He auditioned for Solo, but he was rejected. Yeah, he was. He played young Han Solo in The Age of Adeline, which is actually a pretty good film. It's kind of a love story, but it's actually a really good film. And he does look a lot like Harrison Ford, but he's not a bad actor. But he also, when he's doing the Harrison Ford stuff, it's a lot of it's more impersonation rather than acting. And when you're going, impersonators are great because they're copying what somebody else has done. But as soon as they have to do something original that's not copying somebody else anymore, a lot of times they lose their traction. And so, never ever cast somebody just based on their ability to impersonate, because most of the time, as soon as they have to say lines that they're not copying anymore, it all falls apart. So it's dangerous. And so I can only imagine that that's probably why they didn't cast the guy. Not to say, because again, he did a fine job in Age of Adeline, but Alden Ehrenreich was certainly a more versatile actor. Perfect for the role? Perhaps not, but a good actor nonetheless, I thought. Okay. So Charlie does speak the truth that General Grievous's cough was George Lucas. And I didn't like the cough. I don't dig the cough. Because General Grievous is supposed to be this, this bad mama jama. And the first time we ever meet him is he walks into the bridge of his ship, and he's coughing. And I'm like, what the heck? To me, it's just he's supposed to be this awesome character, and the first thing you show is this weak character. I didn't dig it. I didn't think it was a good choice. I mean, in Legends, the whole reason he's coughing is because during the kidnap of Palpatine, Mace Windu crushes like his chest cavity, which causes the cough. I don't know. I think I just could have done without the cough. Okay. So Dennis is saying, I wanted little Anna to have an evil streak in episode 1. He was too innocent. And, they did shoot a scene. They did shoot a scene where somebody accuses him of cheating in the pod race and he starts beating him up. But it didn't fit with the rest of the story, because really didn't, because he was very innocent the whole time. See, I would have liked to, first off, I would not have done 8-year-old Anakin Skywalker. I would have done teenage Anakin Skywalker in episode 1. And I would have made him more of a, if he's a slave dealing with pilots and roughnecks and stuff, I would have made him more like that. Although with the desire to help people. So let's see here. Detroit Llewellyn says, when can break down the ObiWan Anakin fight on Mustafar? What do you like? What you like and director points you like. Also, I have the high ground line from Obi-Wan. Yeah, that would be a great thing to break down. I'll have to do that in the video, the Obi-Wan Anakin fight, because that's pretty cool. Like I said, that fight was I know one of these fights, either was the Yoda Palpatine or ObiWan Anakin fight, was directed actually by Steven Spielberg. I, I I've always thought it was the Yoda Palpatine fight, but I know he was very instrumental in creating the Obi-Wan Anakin fight too. I just don't know which one he actually sat down and directed. I want to find that out. But yeah, totally. I'll have to do that one day. I know I haven't really just. I'm only doing live streams because it just takes so much less time. I know they're not as effective and cool, but yeah. George Grievous has Corona. Maybe that's canon. It was COVID 05 because 2005. Okay, hope they bring in some of the 2003 Clone Wars into the last 4 episodes of Clone Wars Season 7. I think you might be dreaming there. That was the first Star Wars movie I've seen as a child, Episode 6. Well, it was hold a place in my heart. Well, tomorrow we are doing Episode 6. And I hope you guys enjoy it. So, well, I think that's it for me tonight. This is my favorite movie of all time. I can watch this movie on loop. Despite all its flaws, I love it. I can't get enough of it. It is just so fun for me. These are all miniatures too, by the way, all these little sets. So even in, I think Episode 3 had the most miniatures of any Star Wars film up to that point. That's a miniature. So you can't blame George for doing too much CGI. I love this scene. The music here, beautiful, storming the Jedi Temple. It's just, come on, guys. It's amazing. All right, well, thanks so much for joining me tonight, guys. Always fun to talk Star Wars. Tomorrow will be Return of the Jedi. Then the next day will be The Rise of Skywalker. And then on Saturday will be your choice, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade or Toy Story 3. Very different films, but I couldn't decide which one. So, again, thanks for joining me tonight. And if you haven't ever seen this film, shame on you and you need to go watch it. So remember to stay spiffy, guys, and don't do anything I wouldn't do twice.